You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter @RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, except no imitation. I gotta start with college football, specifically the Quick Lane Bowl. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it because, like I said it would be, it was a rout. Western Michigan totally destroyed Nevada, 52-24. That game was over in the second quarter. At the half, the Broncos were up 31-10. I mean, I knew the Wolfpack would lose this game because Carson Strong wasn't playing. But even if Strong had played, it wouldn't have made much of a difference. While Western Michigan has a good offense, you can't allow them to score 52 points. That's absolutely inexcusable. I mean, give Sean Tyler credit. He went off, like I said he would. 14 carries for 146 yards. Jackson Kincaid came out of nowhere to have a big game. 17 carries for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. Interestingly enough, no Ladarius Jefferson. I don't know why he didn't play. It could have been to prepare for the draft. It could have been something else. I don't know. I mean, Caleb Ellaby was solid when called upon, but he wasn't called upon a lot. This was just good old-fashioned smash-mouth football. We're going to run the ball down your throat, and there's nothing that you're going to be able to do about it. I mean, there's not much else I can say. This game was a rout. This game was a blowout. I knew it would be. Like I said, give Tim Lester credit. He's done a really good job with Western Michigan, and it wouldn't surprise me if down the line he got an offer from a big school like his predecessor did, PJ Fleck. He left Western Michigan for Minnesota. Will Lester leave Western Michigan for a big school? It wouldn't surprise me. But for now, Broncos fans, enjoy this win. You were absolutely great yesterday. This was total domination. Alright, now it's time to preview today's 5 bowl games. I'll start with the Birmingham Bowl. Houston versus Auburn. We have the 20th ranked Cougars going up against the hometown team in the Tigers. Auburn is not that far from Birmingham. It's a 2-hour drive. I would do that drive if I went to Auburn. 100%. Maybe what I'd do is I'd stay in a hotel the night before in Birmingham, so I wouldn't have to leave ridiculously early. and then when the game's over, just drive back. I could see myself doing that. This is going to be a really, really good game. The Cougars are an incredibly well-rounded team. Give Dana Holgorsen a ton of credit. It took him a while to find his bearings in Houston, but now he looks like the coach that he was with WVU. It's kind of interesting, though, if you remember anything about those Mountaineers teams under Holgorsen, they were chuck it, chuck it, chuck it. It was the air raid on steroids. This year, they actually run the ball pretty well, do the Cougars. I mean, their best player is their quarterback, Clayton Tune. He completed 68.5% of his passes this year for over 3,200 yards, 28 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. But the Cougars do have a good running game. Alton McCaskill had 16 touchdowns this year. Tejon Henry had 7. Houston can run the ball, which is very surprising for a Dana Holgorsen-led team. I will say, though, through the air, the best weapon that the Cougars have is Nathaniel Dell. He had 80 catches for 1,179 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's insane. Defensively, the Cougars are stacked. No Marcus Jones. He's going into the draft. That will hurt Houston, but they can compensate for it. Honestly, the list of their great players runs about a mile long on defense. For an Auburn team that struggled to move the ball this year, you really couldn't ask for a worse matchup for him. I mean, TJ Finley is now starting for Auburn. All due respect to Finley, he hasn't been awful since taking over for Bo Nix, but he's not anything special. At the end of the day, the fact that Finley's 2 starts this year resulted in 2 close losses against South Carolina and Alabama kind of speaks negatively to him. Yes, it's nice that he kept those games close, but A, South Carolina isn't that good, and B, that means that the game was within reach and Finley couldn't seal the deal. That does mean something. I've got to ding him for that a little bit. So it's all on Tank Bigsby. Will Bigsby get his? The answer is yes. He's a very talented running back. Ran for over 1,000 yards this year and has 10 touchdowns. But the Cougars have a stout front 7. I mean, I'll say this. The Tigers have a great O-line. It's one of the best O-lines in the nation. Austin Troxell, Tayshaun Manning, Nick Brahms, Keandre Jones, and Brodarius Ham are very talented. It's been a little mix and match for Auburn this year on the O-line. They've gone through a few starting lineups, but they seem to have settled in on one that can really get the job done. Defensively, the best player on Auburn is by far and away Roger McCreary. I mean, he's one of the best defensive players in the nation. And I think he's going to have a really good career in the NFL. We're at that point of the year where I'm doing a lot of homework on the draft. Like, I'm really gearing up for it. I've liked what I've seen from McCreary a lot. He's not as good as a guy like Derek Stingley, but boy, oh boy, is he talented. He's not the only guy who you need to worry about on defense for Auburn. You think about guys like Colby Wooden, Derek Hall, Smoke Monday, Zacoby McLean, Eku Leota, and guys like that. Auburn has a good defense. The thing is, though, I really think that Auburn's lack of a difference maker at quarterback is really going to hurt them here. Clayton Tune is a difference maker. TJ Finley isn't. Even though Auburn has home field advantage, I'm going to pick Houston here. I think this will be a good game, but I think Houston's going to win it. Moving on now to the First Responder Bowl. It's Air Force going up against Louisville. As with basically all the service academy teams, the Falcons run the option offense. The thing is, though, the Falcons do it exponentially well. Like, give Troy Calhoun credit. He has this down to a science. He's been with Air Force for a long time. He's a really good coach. 21 different players this year had at least 2 carries for Air Force this year. You don't know who's going to hurt you. Is it Brad Roberts? Is it Hazik Daniels? Is it DeAndre Hughes? Is it Emmanuel Michel? Is it Micah Davis? Is it Omar Fatah? I'll say this. Daniels and Davis are a little banged up. I'm not sure if those guys are going to play in this bowl game, but I know they're going to give it a go. They're going to try really hard to play, and even if they don't, that doesn't concern me because Air Force has so many guys that can kill you. Defensively, Air Force is really good. They have guys like Vince Sanford, Christopher Herrera, Trey Bug III, Jordan Jackson, Camby Goff, and Trey Taylor. They're a good team. They're 9-3. They were doing something right. Now, it's kind of funny. Louisville has a mobile quarterback themselves in Malik Cunningham. So you gotta think they know how to stop gadget offenses. I mean, Cunningham is a good dual threat quarterback. Ran for 968 yards this year and 19 touchdowns, but was also good with his arm. Completed 62% of his passes, threw for 18 touchdowns. The guy was responsible for 37 touchdowns this year. That's really impressive. Defensively, Louisville isn't great. They have a few good players in Yaya Diaby, Yasir Abdullah, and Kendrick Duncan, but that's about it. I mean, this is an Air Force team that averaged 31 points per game this year. It would not surprise me if they put up 31 points in this game. Now, Louisville had a great offense too. They put up 32 points per game. But that lack of talent on defense is really going to hurt them here. This is a good Air Force team, very underrated. I can't pick against a team coming out of my armed forces. I've got to go with Air Force. Moving on now to the Liberty Bowl. We have Texas Tech going up against Mississippi State. I am not sold on this Red Raiders team at all. Truthfully, there is no one on offense that you need to worry about. They had 3 different players throw at least 90 passes for them. No player had 500 rushing yards. No player had 710 receiving yards. Matt Wells came to Texas Tech from Utah State with the reputation of being an offensive guru. He did an excellent job with Utah State. There's no question about that, but with the Red Raiders, he was a bitter disappointment. They fired him 8 games into the season. They made Sonny Cumbie the interim head coach. Texas Tech was worse under Cumbie than they were under Wells. Now Cumbie's with Louisiana Tech. I wish the Bulldogs a lot of luck. This is just a dreadful Red Raiders team. They were lucky to finish 6-6. Their offense is not good, despite what the stats would tell you. Their defense isn't bad, although the fact that they gave up over 30 points a game this year does mean something. But from an eye test perspective, guys like Dadrion Taylor Demerson, Colin Schooler, Eric Monroe, Tyree Wilson, Devin Drew, and Rashad Williams do make the grade. But Texas Tech isn't going to win a game because of their defense. The reality is this is just a dreadful Red Raiders team. I really hope that Joey Maguire rights that ship. And it's kind of funny that they're going up against Mississippi State. You know who the Bulldogs head coach is? Mike Leach. Mike Leach was the last good coach that Texas Tech had. They never should have gotten rid of him. I mean, one thing you know about Mike Leach, his teams are going to air the ball out. And Will Rogers has a cannon for an arm. Here's a guy who's completed over 75% of his passes for over 4,400 yards, 35 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. He has a lot of really talented pass catchers. Makai Polk, Jaden Wally, Austin Williams, and Joquavius Marks are really, really talented pass catchers. And defensively, they have talent. Their secondary is one of the best in the nation. Martin Emerson, Emmanuel Forbes, Jalen Green, and Colin Duncan are really talented players. Mississippi State is just better than Texas Tech in every sense of the word. I think this is going to be a rout. You're going to be able to turn this off very quickly so you don't miss any of the Holiday Bowl. Give me the Bulldogs in a blowout. Speaking of the Holiday Bowl, this is going to be a great game. NC State versus UCLA. There was a time in my life when I wanted to go to NC State. But life took me in a different direction. You look at the Wolfpack, their team really revolves around Devin Leary. The guy completed over 65% of his passes this year for over 3,400 yards, 35 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. He's helped a lot by his supporting cast. Zonovan Knight and Ricky Person Jr. are one of the best running back duos in the nation. Emeka Emezi is a really talented wide receiver. He had 60 catches for 802 yards and 6 touchdowns. Defensively, the Wolfpack are stacked. Drake Thomas, Tyler Baker-Williams, Shaheem Battle, Daniel Joseph, Jakeen Harris, Corey Durden, Derek Pitts, Davin Vann, V. Jones. Give Dave Doran a ton of credit. NC State, while they've never won a national title, has always been a really good team. They do have a big history to uphold. You think about some of the big names that coached at NC State once upon a time. Lou Holtz, before he got to the Jets. I'm not kidding. Holtz was hired from NC State. Then he went to Arkansas. Then Minnesota. Then Notre Dame. Monty Kiffin coached there. Dick Sheridan coached there. Chuck Amato coached there. Tom O'Brien coached there. These are names, if you're a big college football fan, you know and you respect. Dave Doran has upheld that tradition and has built upon it. This is a really good Wolfpack team. Meanwhile, you look at the Bruins. Chip Kelly has finally found his groove. It was touch and go there for a little bit. The pandemic kind of saved him. Because when Kelly first got to UCLA, those were really bad teams. Even in the pandemic-shortened season, UCLA went 3-4. But the Bruins stuck with him. Now they're 8-4. And they have an excellent offense. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a really good dual-threat quarterback, which you need to be running Kelly's offense. Here's a guy who's completed 62% of his passes for just over 2,400 yards, 21 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions. He also has 611 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns. Zach Charbonnet had a really good season, over 1,100 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns. Kyle Phillips is a really good wide receiver. He had 59 catches for 739 yards and 10 touchdowns. Greg Dulcich is a really good tight end. 42 catches for 725 yards and 5 touchdowns. This is the offense that you envision when you think of Chip Kelly in college. You think of those 4 great Oregon teams. This Bruins team does have shades of those teams. Defensively, they have guys like Jay Shaw, Quentin Lake, Otito Ogbonnia, Mitchell Agude, Caleb Johnson, Obi Ebo. These are really talented players. I mean, I had a tough time making a pick for this game. You know what the tiebreaker was? Home field advantage. This game is being played at Petco Park, where the San Diego Padres play. It takes about 2 hours to drive from LA to San Diego with no traffic. Now, I understand that there's always traffic in LA, but the point is, if you're a Bruins fan, you'll travel for this game. It's an 8 o'clock start, so even if you work like 9 to 5, if you can get out of work like an hour early, that gives you more than enough time to drive to San Diego for this game. It wouldn't stun me if the Wolfpack won, but because this game is so close to LA, I'm going to go with the Bruins. The last bowl game is the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. It's WVU versus Minnesota. There was a time in my life when I wanted to go to WVU. In fact, when I first started thinking about colleges, WVU was the school that I first keyed in on. It's kind of crazy, the twists and turns that life throws at you. I mean, I'm not going to bore you with why I took the path that I took. We'd be here until next Christmas. But it's kind of interesting to think about, like, the person that you were when you just started high school or you just started college. And you think about the goals for that person. And now you think about you in the present, how those goals changed over time. It's honestly crazy. But back to the game, when you look at the Mountaineers, they're a good team, a well-rounded team. Neil Brown is doing a good job with the school. He's got some talent to work with. Jarrett Doge completed just under 66% of his passes for just under 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. He's not great, but he's not terrible. There are worse quarterbacks than him. But the WVU offense does run through Letty Brown. Brown had a really good year, over 1,000 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns. The unsung hero of the Mountaineers is their O-line. It's one of the best O-lines in the nation. You've got guys like Brandon Yates, James Gamitter. I'm sure I butchered that name. I apologize, but you know who I'm talking about if you look at the roster. Zach Frazier, Doug Nestor, and Wyatt Milam, or Milam. Again, everyone should be named John Smith. That would make my life a lot easier. I've said that before, I'll say it again. It is a very talented offensive line. No great players on defense, but some solid players. Darryl Porter Jr., Akeem Mesidor, Dante Stills, and Josh Chandler Semedo are good players. This is a solid WVU team, but they're not as good as the Golden Gophers. Now, PJ Fleck, I think, is doing the wrong thing with this team. He's starting Tanner Morgan. I don't want Tanner Morgan to start. I don't think he's the best fit for the kind of offense that Fleck runs. The better fit is Cole Kramer. Minnesota runs a very run-heavy offense. They've got some option stuff in there. The way to take that offense to the next level is to have a mobile quarterback. Tanner Morgan is not a mobile quarterback. Cole Kramer is. Morgan's a senior. Kramer will be a redshirt junior. It'll be interesting to see how good the Golden Gophers offense is with Kramer at the helm. I could really see it surprising a lot of people. They'll still have guys like Kai Thomas and Marquise Irving. Trayson Potts will hopefully be back. They could get Bryce Williams back. If you have a mobile quarterback running that offense, watch out. It could be really, really good. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't credit the O-line. This is one of the best O-lines in the nation. If you're a fan of good old-fashioned hog molly football, you're going to love this matchup between the Mountaineers and the Golden Gophers. You're going to see great O-line play. You look at a unit that has Sam Schluter, Connor Olson, John Michael Schmitz, Blaze Andrews, and Daniel Falelli. I'm sure I butchered that name. I'm butchering a lot of names here. That's fun. But it's an excellent O-line. That's the bottom line. Defensively, Minnesota's really good. Boye Mafe, Esezi Otomewo, Justin Wally, Jordan Howden, Thomas Rush, Coney Durr, Jack Gibbons, Tyler Newbin, MJ Anderson, and Justice Harris all have a lot of talent. This is a really good Golden Gophers team. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people next year. They're going to win this game easily. Alright, now I'll give you some NFL Valk talk. Specifically on Dolphins Saints. Ian Book was making his first ever start. He was a 4th round pick in this past NFL draft. The Saints were down to their 4th string quarterback because Jameis Winston is obviously out for the year with the ACL injury, and Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian are on the COVID list. So that left Ian Book and Blake Bortles as the only quarterbacks for the Saints. Yeah, it went about as poorly as you could possibly imagine. I mean, I don't want to kill Book because the loss really isn't on him primarily. At the end of the day, it's very hard to do much offensively when your quarterback is sacked 8 times. I mean, you look at the Dolphins' box score on defense. Almost every guy there had at least half a sack. It's insane. Every play, Book was under siege. I felt bad for him. Here's a kid who wasn't supposed to play this year. He's thrust into starting a nationally televised game against a good Dolphins team. And that's the O-line that he has protecting him? Are you kidding me? Look, I understand that the Saints O-line is banged up and they were playing with a bunch of schmageggies. I mean, the starting O-line was James Hurst, Calvin Throckmorton, Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, and Caleb Beninock. It does not get much worse than that. The only true NFLer on that O-line is Hurst. McCoy's having a really bad year. He got hurt early in the year. I mean, that really killed his season. But still, he's not getting the job done. No one wants to hear excuses. Cesar Ruiz looks like a bust. Calvin Throckmorton is a nobody. He's not good at all. And Caleb Beninock had only played one game in the NFL since 2019, before yesterday. I mean, yeah, the Saints were banged up. I understand that. A quarterback that they didn't want to have play, an O-line that's full of guys who really aren't that good. Cesar Ruiz is dreadful. Calvin Throckmorton's dreadful. Beninock shouldn't be in the NFL. McCoy I'll give a pass to because of his injury. And he was really good his first couple seasons in the NFL. But still, he's not getting the job done right now. That's all anyone cares about. Especially if you're a fan of a team that's trying to make a playoff push. You can't have just one good offensive lineman. Even though James Hurst is a good player, he can't be the only guy getting the job done. And for goodness sake, you're starting a wide receiver named Aesop Winston Jr. No one would know this guy if he came to their house and delivered them a pizza. I feel bad for Book. I really do. The idea that anyone could make lemonade out of these spoiled lemons is absurd. Especially a quarterback making his first ever start in the NFL. I feel bad for the kid. I'm not mad at a guy like Sean Payton. I'm not mad at a guy. guy like Mickey Loomis. At the end of the day, This is how the chips fell. It's sad that the Saints' playoff hopes took a major hit. They're now a game out of the playoffs. They're behind the Eagles, Vikings, and Falcons right now. They really needed this game. And that's the roster that they put out there. I feel sorry for Saints fans. Saints fans are great fans. And what's worse is there's no one to get mad at. Like, you can't get mad at Book for not being able to make this work. Patrick Mahomes couldn't make this work. You can't get mad at Alvin Kamara for only having 52 rushing yards. Jonathan Taylor wouldn't do anything behind this O-line. It's just sad. It's sad that with COVID and injuries piling up, these are the rosters that we have to watch. It's just sad. There's no one to blame. It's just upsetting as a football fan. I mean, give the Dolphins credit. They didn't do anything spectacular in this game. Jalen Waddle was really good. 10 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown. But at the end of the day, they've now done something that no team in NFL history has ever done. They were 1-7 after Halloween. They were riding a 7-game losing streak. They looked dead to the world. If you'll recall, they were heavily linked to Deshaun Watson. There were rumors that that whole team could be blown up to kingdom come. But the Dolphins rallied and are now on a 7-game winning streak. No team in NFL history has ever had a 7-game losing streak and a 7-game winning streak in the same season. Don't look now, but the Dolphins are in the playoffs. They're the 7 seed. They have the tiebreaker over the Ravens, Chargers, and Raiders. Season ends today. They're going up against the Titans in the playoffs. I mean, maybe there's no game in this win streak that really wows you. I guess the only one would be the Ravens win. Jacoby Brissett starts. He gets knocked out. An injured Tua comes in and leads the Dolphins to a 22-10 victory. At the time of that loss, the Ravens were 6-2. That loss to the Dolphins was their 3rd loss on the year. So yeah, that was impressive, but still, you only scored 22 points. Like, it wasn't a fantastic win. It was a really good win, but if that's the best win on a 7-game win streak, that's tough. Like, that's the knock on the Dolphins right now. They're beating up on bad teams. You look at their 7 wins, they came against the Texans, the Ravens, the Jets, the Panthers, the Giants, the Jets again, and an injury-ravaged Saints team. But still, it's impressive to win 7 straight games. And at the end of the day, if the Dolphins were that bad, they'd have lost those games. Are they going to come back down to earth? They play the Titans in Tennessee on Sunday. How funny is that? Season ends today. Those two teams are going at it in the playoffs. But they're playing each other in the regular season. Gotta love it. That's going to be a tough game. They close the season out in Miami against the Patriots. That's going to be a tough game. But the way the Dolphins are playing right now, it's tough to pick against them. I don't think anyone looks at the Dolphins as a Super Bowl team, but you've got to admire the job that Brian Flores has done. It would have been very easy to just let this team keel over and die. Now, he has them in the playoffs. You remember when I said that Zach Taylor's my coach of the year and Nick Sirianni's the runner-up? I'd like to change that. Taylor's still my coach of the year because the Bengals, as it stands right now, are leading their division. The Dolphins aren't. But the runner-up isn't Sirianni. And as good a job as Sirianni has done, I've got to put Brian Flores ahead of him. Let's have the top three as Taylor, Flores, Sirianni, with Frank Reich just off the podium. There was a death in the sports world that I really wanted to talk about, and that is the death of Bruce Davis, whose death was announced yesterday at the age of 65. You think about the best O-linemen of the 80s, you probably think of guys like Anthony Munoz, Mike Webster, Dwight Stevenson, Russ Grimm, Randy Cross, Joe Jacoby, Dan Alexander, etc., etc. It would take you a while to get to Bruce Davis, and that's okay. Because Davis wasn't at that top tier, but he was probably in the second tier. Davis was a really good O-lineman. And the thing is, it almost didn't happen. He played college football at UCLA. But he started there as a defensive tackle. In his senior year, he was moved to offensive tackle because the UCLA O-line was so hampered by injuries. Davis did enough to be drafted in the 11th round of the 1979 NFL Draft. And it took Davis a while to really find his footing, but Art Shell really helped him. Like, it's kind of funny. Some players, when you draft their heir apparent, they want nothing to do with them. They won't help them. They won't mentor them. They won't teach them. They want to be as far away from them as humanly possible. Shell did not do that. He worked with Davis. He mentored Davis. Not surprising given the fact that Shell would later get into coaching. But still, you've got to give him credit. He could have very easily said, screw you, I'm not going to help you, but he worked with Davis. Now, like I said, it took Davis a while to find his footing. When the Raiders won Super Bowl 15 over the Eagles 27-10, Davis didn't start. That was still Art Shell's position. But Davis got a ring. It wasn't until 82 that Tom Flores named Shell starting left tackle. That year, the Raiders went 8-1. They were the best team in the AFC in terms of regular season record. They destroyed the Browns 27-10 in the wild card round. Then in the divisional round, the Jets pulled off a big upset by winning 17-14. Thank you, Scott Durkin. He scored the go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter. The year after that, the Raiders went 12-4, and they ran roughshod all throughout the playoffs. They creamed the Steelers 38-10 in the divisional round. They steamrolled the Seahawks in the AFC title game 30-14. Then in Super Bowl 18, they eviscerated the Redskins 38-9. So Davis did get a ring as a starting left tackle. But that was the high watermark of Davis's career. The year after that, the Raiders lost to the Seahawks 13-7 in the wild card round. The year after that, the Raiders lost to the Patriots 27-20 in the divisional round. Davis was named the team's best offensive lineman that year. So maybe that's a silver lining. In 1987, Tom Flores' last year with the Raiders, and the Raiders in the midst of a dismal 5-10 season, Davis was traded to the Houston Oilers. So Davis had a chance to win another Super Bowl. He played there from 87 to 89. The Oilers made the playoffs every year. In 87 and 88, they made the divisional round, but they only scored 10 points in both those games. Kind of hard to win when you only score 10 points. And in 89, the Oilers lost to the Steelers 26-23. Gary Anderson kicked a game-winning 50-yard field goal in overtime. After that, he was released by the Oilers. He tried to latch back on with the Raiders, but his knees just gave out. He had arthroscopic surgery. It just wasn't meant to be. It's a shame that he's been lost to history because he was a really good player. May he rest in peace. Until tomorrow, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.